do a quick instructional video on how to change the brake fluid on your 2008 FZ6S. It's fairly quick, not much to it. This bike still has probably the original brake fluid in it. It's pretty dark, so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to siphon some of the old stuff out before we put our new bottle in. So we'll go through some of the tools you're going to need for the job today. We got our nitrate gloves, just you're dealing with some brake fluid, so you want to keep your hands clean there. I got a knife for cutting our 1/4 inch ID hose. So this is the hose that we're going to use to connect to the bleeder port on the brake caliper, and that's going to drain into this bottle here, which is just a regular 2-liter pop bottle. And all I've done is I've cut a little cross hatch in here, so you can feed this hose in. So you can pump all your old brake fluid in, and then if there's any air, it pumps into this bottle as well. You're gonna need, well, you don't have to. You could pump the brake fluid that's in the reservoir through, but I wouldn't suggest it if it's very old. Like in this case, it's better to siphon what's in the reservoir out, so you're not pushing that old fluid through. I have a number 2 Phillips or a JIS 2 you could use as well for taking the reservoir cap off on the front brakes, and then also an 8mm wrench for cracking the bleeder valve on the caliper. And then I have my new dot for brake fluid as well. I'm going to put a link in the bottom of the video where I got all this stuff from, so if you guys want to do the same, you'll have all the stuff you need. So now we got our front brake reservoir here. So now we're just going to go ahead and remove our two Phillips screws off the reservoir cap. And you can see right on the reservoir cap, it tells you to use dot for brake fluid. Peel this guy off, and then you got a plastic cover there. And then underneath you're going to have also this little rubber diaphragm that sits in there as well. So now you can see the brake fluid in there. It's looking pretty dark. So that's I'm going to siphon most of that out. But I'm not going to empty it completely because you don't want air to enter the system. So I'm going to just empty a majority out, leaving a little bit in the bottom. So you take your syringe and just start pulling the fluid out. I'm just going to leave just a bit to cover that bleeder port there. And then whatever I got in my syringe here, I'm going to dump into my pop bottle. That way I can safely dispose of it and take it to the dump and get rid of it as hazardous waste. So now that I've siphoned that most of that brake fluid out, I want to, when I'm not working on it, I want to keep it covered to keep the contaminants out of the reservoir there. But the big thing is now is I'm going to follow this main line that comes down through the frame here, and I'll follow this around to the other side of the bike. Now you see the main line comes down from up top, and then it kind of has this sister line that goes across to the far caliper. So what we're going to do is that we know it comes to this caliper first and then it goes over to the other one. So what you want to do is you want to bleed from the far side, because then you know this caliper is full of brake fluid, and then you come to the far side and you'll be bleeding from this port here. So just making sure that that side's full of brake fluid, and then you're bleeding all your air out from this side. So once you have your hose to length and attach to the caliper, this is kind of how your setup should look here. And then you can see I just have it coming through this side of the bottle, so any when I'm pumping the brake lever, it's pumping through the hose and into the bottle. So now with your brake fluid, what I do is I just cut a little hole in the top foil just so it's easier for me to pour into the reservoir, and then I'm ready to add some. So I'm gonna take my reservoir cover off there and plop it over off to the side. I'm just gonna top my reservoir up. Then I'll put the cover back on, and I'll put the lid back on my brake fluid there. Now what you're going to do now is you're going to take your 8mm wrench and you're going to crack the bleed port open, and then after you've cracked the bleed port, then you're going to pull in your front brake lever and hold it pulled all the way in until you've closed the bleeder port again. So I've cracked it loose. I'm going to pull my brake lever in, and I look down here and I can see the brake fluid coming out. So now I'm going to close it and then do another pump after I've opened and closed it again. So now once you've pumped through your brake fluid a few times and it's starting to come out clear, now basically what you want to do is you just want to check your reservoir and then top it up to your full line above the lower line on your sight glass. So mine's pretty much already there, it's already full. Might just add a little bit more, and then the front end is done. Then we'll move to the rear. So we're gonna go on and put our plastic cap and the little rubber dust seal here back on our reservoir, and put the lid back on. So you're going to have some brake fluid left in the hose here. So you're going to want to make sure you have a rag handy for when you pull that off, that you're going to catch some of it and you're not going to get it all over your tires and rims, right? So on the back side, your setup's going to be the same. You have your bleed tube hooked up, running to your bottle. And then you can try and kind of fit it here so you keep a loop. Just to make things easier. That way you always have, if there's any air bubbles, it's getting pushed and staying on the other side of the hose. And instead of using your front brake lever this time, you're using your rear brake pedal here. So the same idea, you're gonna crack your bleeder port, depress your brake, and then close your bleeder port and let off the brake until you've pumped through all the old brake fluid. I'm going to do the same with the siphon, and I'm going to use a hose this time and then pull a majority of this old brake fluid out before I introduce my brand new brake fluid. So it's really tight between this fairing, so you can't quite get this cap off. So what I ended up doing is I took a 10mm socket and I'm just going to take this off so I can fill this reservoir and then also pull everything out of it, take the cap off without pulling the side plastics off. So you can see I got my syringe in there. I'm just going to slowly start pulling some of that fluid out of the brake reservoir, just leaving just a little bit just so it doesn't take in any air, and I want to make sure I don't get any brake fluid on my bike. But you can see I just have enough just to cover the hole. Then we're going to pump the rest through. Now I'm just going to go ahead and top up with some of the new clean brake fluid. Just add a little bit for this at this time, and then we're going to start pumping it through. And when I'm pumping it, I put the lid back on just to make sure that there's nothing coming in there, no dust or dirt or anything in the air. And right off the bat, you can see how grungy and nasty that old brake fluid was in the tube there. So it's a good thing we're doing this change, get that all pumped out. So now I got my brake reservoirs all closed up. I'm just gonna have to put that 10mm bolt back in, but there's a black cap, like this little rubber diaphragm that goes down in the bowl. So you're only gonna want to fill it up about just above or just below halfway on this reservoir, because as soon as you put that plunger in, it shoots up any excess. So it's going to make a little bit of a mess, so I've cleaned that up already. But now when you come over to your bleeder port, you can see that the brake fluid is nice and clear now. I got all my old dirty brake fluid in there. You can see how nasty that color is in comparison. And then we're all done this job.